in the U.S. Everyone has a bank account, right? I have Chase, maybe have Bank of America or Wells Fargo or something, right? Everyone is banked, right?
Yes.
So in Latin America, that's not true. So if you're in Mexico, over 60% of people don't have a bank account. So like the 40% will have a traditional bank. The rest of the people use cash, right? In Colombia, and I want to use Colombia as an example because that's where we really have like a unique value add, and really illustrates what the product does. So in Colombia, it's sort of the same thing. 40% of people have traditional bank accounts, but the other 60% have basically banking apps called like WeChat, if you're familiar with in China, right? So they have one of two apps. Like one of them is called Nequi, one of them is called DaviPlata. And these are it's like an app where you can go create a bank account without ever sending it into a bank. So you just get an app, now you have a bank account, you open an account there, right? And then you can go to a grocery store, deposit some money, it shows up in your bank account. You can go to any store and just pay with a QR code with your Nequi app, right? So basically like all these people they have bank accounts, but they're not the traditional ones, right? So if you go on TransferWise and try to send money, you can't actually send money to those people. They have to have a real bank account, right? So it's not like we didn't skip the banking system, to be clear, right? We created infrastructure that integrated those neobanks with the traditional banking system. So now an international person, right? Colombia itself, those people who have Nequi can go pay a person who has a regular Bank of Colombia, or they can pay a person who has a regular Davivienda. But me, from my Chase, I can't pay someone who has a Nequi. I can only pay someone who has a traditional bank account. So we basically create infrastructure that bridge the layer between these. They're called neobanks. They're all everywhere in South America, with the traditional banking system there, and then integrated that with the international payments flow.
Perfect. So basically, you are the connection between traditional banking and these app bank accounts, whatever they're called.
Yep. And this gives me, if you mind, I'll talk about the actual product that we have. So Relámpago is the name of the company, and our whole idea was when I was so about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, COVID was starting, so everything got locked down and that sort of thing. And I was like, okay, I was in Boston, I was living there, and Boston was like a ghost town. I was like, okay, I need to get out of here. I don't want to go home and live with a family. I want to go somewhere else. Like, where can I go for relatively cheap? And I looked at for relatively cheap, and also like a country that doesn't have entry COVID restrictions, right? Because every country in the world was like, you can't come in.
Man.
Exactly, right? So I looked and I was like, okay, El Salvador was one of them, and Colombia was the other one. And I was like, I speak Spanish. I've never been to South America. Let me go, just book a flight over there and see what's up, right? So I booked the flight and to Colombia, went to Bogota, and about basically I just, started just hanging out. Just was working. I was working for what was I working for? I was working for I think I was a contractor at Facebook at the time, but as an engineer, but I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But essentially, like I was there. I was working remotely. Having a good time. And then I started noticing that if I wanted to make a payment, basically, like if I wanted to just buy some, I don't know, some chicken at a local, at the local corner store, pay anyone, like if, like here, like we have Venmo, right? Like someone buys me some drinks and I'm like, okay, how do I pay this guy, for anything, right? It was just a horrible process. I'd be like, okay, do I really need to go to Western Union to send this guy a Venmo payment for $10? Or I'd try to get on TransferWise, or I get on, Remitly and be like, shit, okay, like he doesn't have the correct bank account to be able to receive this payment. So then I started noticing this problem everywhere. And, other people that I talked to, like, especially foreigners, right? Because they would have a foreign bank account, and we're trying to, like, maybe some expats, maybe some tourists, constantly have this problem. And I said, hey, I come from engineering background, software engineering background. And basically I had two friends that also, they're also engineers. And I was like, hey, like, can we think of a solution to this problem? Can we basically build that infrastructure to connect these neobanks, these Nequis, these DaviPlatas, these in Colombia, with like regular infrastructure so I can actually pay people? And basically, this was about like 3 years ago initially, like when I started noticing this about this whole concept. Fast forward maybe the product went through like several revisions. Like initially, it wasn't like completely. Yeah, exactly. So fast forward like maybe a year, or maybe even a year and a half, to be honest, and then we kind of got the sort of infrastructure that basically the first vision of the infrastructure that we have now. So I'd say the company started, the Relampago idea started about a year and a half ago. But essentially during that period when I was there in Colombia and other parts of South America, I just noticed the fact that I just couldn't pay anybody. And I was like, okay, let me try to fix this problem. But yeah.
So you found a niche in a different market.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily where you were at the time in Boston.
Yep.
It was after you went somewhere else, you were able to find, hey, this is a problem that exists. I'm going to try to attack this.
Exactly. Yep. And it's not a problem that is, to be honest, like if you go to, Colombia or Argentina or whatever, like it might take you 6 months before you really, because you have to understand what's going on, right? Like you can't be like, oh, I see a QR code. Okay, whatever. Like that's not like a Necky QR code. I don't even know what that means. Like it takes a while of just talking to people, just goofing off, like, and just having just normal conversations with people for a while before you really understand, okay, like this person, okay, why do they, have a Necky account, but they can't have a traditional bank account? Okay, why do they prefer having, this neobank when they could just walk into the bank and, open a bank account? Or maybe, what's the reason? Where's there distrust of the banking system, or is there a deeper issue at play? Like there's a lot of like cultural and socioeconomic issues that people face that you kind of have to kind of build a picture in your head. And once that picture was built for me, I was like, okay, now I understand that this is a huge, like, not just for me, this is an issue that's going to be, a problem for a long time in Colombia. Let's tackle it.
So if I went to Colombia and I wanted to buy chicken at the corner store and I pull out my, American Express or whatever, that's going to be the problem. That's a problem.
They won't
okay,
take
that's
it.
my...
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're solving that problem.
Exactly. If you have the Relampago app, you can just pay anyone. Like let's say the corner store guy has Relampago, right? If he has, all you need is phone number and you just make a payment and it's instant to his Necky, his Davi Plata, his whatever.
And it's as secure as banking because it's using the rails of banking.
Exactly. It's not cash, right? Like cash is the anonymous, like insecure. We are completely banked. We're completely using the banking rails. It's just all these people that, people don't even know about this problem, right? Like what do they use in Argentina? What do they use in Colombia? What do they use in Brazil, right? But now, like me being down there kind of opened my eyes to this whole, okay, there's millions and millions of people who use banking, but not in the way that I would think of it.
That's interesting because I have never experienced that.
Yep.
We were just international. We were in Switzerland and it was very easy for me to pay.
Yep.
I just had my Visa or American Express, whatever we were using, and it was just easy to swipe. But I guess I wouldn't have that same convenience in Colombia or...
It'll be it's a constant problem. Every time when I want to pay someone, and it's happened so many times, not just to me, to friends, to just everyone's a common experience. To like for instance, in Cartagena, a lot of tourists go there for the beach and that sort of thing. If you want to get a jet ski, right? The guy's like, okay, it's $90, right? Like you pay for the tour and the jet ski and everything, and you're like, okay, well, how do I pay you? He's like, oh, a Necky, and you're like, okay, but I can't make a Necky. I don't have a Colombian number. I don't have but they don't know that, right? Like to them, it's just like a Colombian comes in and they want to, get a jet ski, they pay with their Necky, easy, boom, right? So there's no distinction for them as a tourist. As a tourist, you have to go find the nearest ATM. That could be 3 blocks away, make a trip over there, get the $100 or $90 or whatever and come back and in pesos and come back and pay him, right? So this is a constant annoying experience.
So it sounds like it makes it easier for developed nations to do business with less developed nations.
Exactly. So, and not even...
I hate to use the word developed. I just mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The banking rails are... It's more like... not even like in a sense a developed country. So, like I was a tourist in Colombia or Brazil, right? And I was having a tourist experience. But also, like the majority of tourists, quote unquote, or expats that go back there are actually like Colombian immigrants who lived in the U.S. and now they just like, oh, I'm gonna go back home, but they have a dollar account. They have their U.S. banking account, right? They're not going to get rid of it. And so they prefer to keep their money in dollars as opposed to in peso, when the peso is constantly like deflating, right? Why would you keep your money in your Colombian account when you can hold dollars, right?
It's a little more stable.
Exactly, right. But now how are they going to transfer their money in dollars to pay someone in Colombia? Like what they would do is what they normally do is they take those US dollars, transfer it to their Colombian bank account, and then from that Colombian bank account go pay someone. So they, do a wire transfer or something like that, which takes a couple of days. They have to constantly like keep a balance in Colombia so they can go pay normal people. I don't know if that's making sense.
It makes sense.
Okay,
yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
Why is it that 60% or 40%, whatever it was, don't trust the traditional banking, or they don't use it? They use this Nequi account instead.
Technically, it's a complicated thing, but in general, Latin America has always been cash heavy. So, to be honest, like it makes sense because banks have always been predatory. So banks, like, if you want to make a bank account, for a long time they used to be, oh, you need property. Oh, you want to take a loan? Okay, we're gonna charge a ridiculous amount of interest, and then there's no like banking in Latin America has always been for the exclusive. Like maybe the elite or, upper middle class, that sort of people, right? The like normal people who work, normal gig jobs, may work in Uber, or maybe, they sell stuff on the street or something like that. Like they don't even know the whole digital, like what is digital finance, digital banking, which is so common in the US or in Europe or something like that, like, or in Asia. Like that's not something that they have really any experience with, right? And what happened is about 3 years ago when COVID started, everyone was stuck in home, right, at home, and the government had to like pay people subsidies, like every month they receive like a couple $100s or something to keep everyone afloat, right? In the U.S., the government was doing that too. So how is the government going to pay all these people who don't have bank accounts? So in come neobanks. So basically, for this reason, Nequi's popped up, the Davi Plata pop up, new bank in Brazil, like, and it was like, okay, like how do we, we're gonna bridge that gap. Like these neobanks constantly say, like in their publicity, oh, we're not associated with Bank of Colombia. Like they are, like they're just a part of Bank of Colombia. Nequi is just Bank of Colombia, but they'll say like in their publicity, they're like, oh yeah, we don't work with those guys. We're just here for you, the regular people, right? So there was like a bridge into people, like getting people like more comfortable with digital banking. They were able to see their government subsidies like come in every month, and they're like, oh, okay, let me see how this works. And now people are like, okay, let me just open a traditional bank account because I know how Nequi works. I know how let me like make that final step. But so it's basically a two-part answer. One is the banks themselves were assholey, of course, and then secondly the lack of comfortability with just banking in general in Latin America.
Could you see this, and maybe not with your company, but I'm just now thinking as you're bringing this up, the niche, because I was looking into different things like smart contracts. Could you see this type of technology being used if the banks are extremely predatory and it's tough for somebody to get a loan? Could somebody use something like you've developed for peer-to-peer loans with smart contracts?
Yep.
Because that seems like, just when you're bringing that up, that's immediately what I went to. Like, we can create this secure smart contract peer-to-peer where I make a loan to you. Let's say the bank is requiring that you have a $500,000 house and another house in the Hamptons.
Yeah.
Whereas I could just be like, okay, I just want to know that you have a job and I can charge you 5%.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a niche there too.
I think so. That's interesting, but I feel like that would work in the US, right?
Okay.
In Latin America, people don't have as much, like it's poorer, right? So there's rich people, but there's not as many like people with so much disposable income to be able to give you a $500K loan, right? Like for instance, in Colombia, just to put it in perspective, I think the average salary is like $700 a month. Right, that's the average person.
Whew.
It's much cheaper to live, right? If you take an Uber, it's like $3, right? Mm-hmm. And that's like a 20-minute Uber. But that's compared to an American, like $700 a month is like what, a quarter of minimum wage? Like it's not even exactly, right?
Exactly.
So when you talk about that level, like you're not gonna find, maybe the president of Colombia makes like $90K. That's which here is, you know, a lot of people make 90K. Like,
Yeah,
it's not like
right.
so
You're in middle class.
Exactly, right? So, but there you can live really well with 90K. But that being said, like there's going to be less opportunity for, you know, that smart contract thing that you were saying, right? Probably would work in here, right? You know?
Right. I wonder then if you are able to, and I'm just shooting the shit now. If you're able to transfer funds, or let's say, I guess transfer funds or pay somebody, if you have a US bank account to a Necky account, maybe you could also develop, not saying you, but somebody could potentially develop something where, you know, internationally there can be a smart contract and something between people. You know what I mean? So you can skip that step. Use the traditional banking rails, but have it so it can be more peer-to-peer and less through the traditional structures.
No, that could be a great idea, to be honest, because
I'm gonna take it to Y Combinator, and I need $500,000 to start pursuing it.
No. I mean, this is like making me think, because those people that, you know, the 60% of Colombia that uses Necky, right? They getting loans is a really hard thing. Even like a small loan, like a, you know, a $1,500 loan, or, you know, something like, which is like nothing for us, right? They just work an extra month as a minimum wage, or 2 months as minimum wage employee at Walmart, right? But that, like, one, like, the bank is not going to give you a loan because they're like, okay, but you're like a gig worker, right? Your gig could, you know, it starts raining and then you can't sell anything in the street, you know, whether you're selling like empanadas or something like that's like a lot of people, right?
Yes.
So, you know, it's hard for them to get loans, and a peer-to-peer, especially if it comes from the outside, could work very well.
Dude, that makes sense to me, because I'm thinking like, you almost can turn yourself into a venture capitalist. You can be like just an upper middle class American, make 150 a year, and you're a venture capitalist down in Colombia. It makes, I mean,
that's actually phenomenal. Like,
that's actually not a bad idea, bro. If you develop that, I want to be the first VC that's making loans to Colombia.
No, but this is what I mean. This is exactly what I mean. Like, when you go, instead of like living around here, like in the US, right? We don't really have a lot of problems. Like we might have some problems, like I don't know, maybe like you lost your Netflix password. Dude. I don't like typing problems on the screen. Like that's not really a problem, right?
First world problems.
First world problems, right? But when you go and, you know, go to different places, you can see every place has like a unique situation, right? The same problems that are in Colombia are not going to be the ones in Brazil. The ones that are in Brazil are not going to be in, you know, Saudi Arabia or India or whatever, right? So it's more like if you have a set, like you just put I just told you about neobanks, and you're like, oh, now I'm thinking about, you know, peer-to-peer loans and stuff, right? That sort of thing is like what people don't do, right? That's the fewest people are going to go out there and, you know, put themselves in a new culture, a new language, and try to figure things out. And then the payout is big, right? Because like you're doing something that, how many Americans are going to actually go and do something like that?
Very few.
Right? But yeah, exactly. So.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. And just to bring it down to even maybe more of a local level, for instance, the gym that I opened, there was no gym in the neighborhood. It closed. So it wasn't, I mean, obviously going international, there's going to be huge opportunity there. But even just somebody could look at their small town or the next town over. Like what don't they have here? Maybe they don't have a great plumber. Maybe they don't have a great gym. Maybe they don't have a great laundromat. Dumb stuff like that. Maybe they don't have good affordable housing. So now all of a sudden you start developing housing. So I do think that's a good salient point to draw from this is, if there's no opportunity in your neighborhood because it's saturated, sometimes just moving the next neighborhood might be a good opportunity there.